to this Real Thoughts edition of the Real Dil podcast. It's on a Thursday. We come off one of the most remarkable finals games, one of the most remarkable off games in history of the league. I don't think that's hyperbole. This league been playing basketball now for what 80 years. You won't find you'd be hard pressed to find a more dramatic and riveting finish than what you saw last night at Madison Square Garden. The New York Knickerbockers are 48 minutes away from ending 53 years of misery as they took out their San Antonio Spurs game that I don't think anyone will ever forget. Uh, a game that basically was two games in one, in a sense. A game that there were heroes and goats, comeback, collapse, whatever you want to call it. It was a game that will not be forgotten anytime soon. And certainly, if you were fortunate to be there, um, then I'm sure you paid a pretty price considering the tickets, considering the ticket prices, but it was worth it. Especially if you were a New York Knicks fan, 107, 106, the Knicks pulled off a one of the most dramatic comebacks in NBA history, statistically, the greatest comeback in NBA history, in the NBA Finals history at 29 points. The previous largest comeback was back in 2008, Game 4, where Boston came back against the Lakers. And similar to this game, we put them up 3 games to 1. They put them up 3 games to 1. Of course, they won in 6 games back in 2008. The KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Boston Celtics, Doc Rivers. This game had everything. Um, you're watching this game in the first half, and the Spurs are putting on a shooting exhibition that was historic. They shoot almost close to 60% in the first half. They knock down an NBA record 14 3-pointers in the first half. Uh, Towns picks up 2 fouls within the first couple minutes in the first quarter. The Knicks just seemingly were shocked after that, um, with that situation. And the Spurs couldn't do no wrong. The Spurs did not have a turnover for like the first like quarter and a half. I think like the Spurs played perfect basketball. Like they scored 76 points in the first half. NBA Finals record for a team on the road. Everything. And I mean it was a point to where I'm on a text thread and we're having conversations about shit that had nothing to do about basketball. The Spurs were beating everybody into submission uh, with the way that they were playing, and there was nothing in the first half that you saw that would even remotely that would have any signs that something what was about to transpire in the second half, or any signs that the Knicks, would we're going to pull this off in the second half. Going to the second half, you're thinking for the sake of the Knicks mentally, just win the second half. Just win the second half. Lose by say 18, 15, 16. Have something positive to take into game 5 on Saturday. And then the third quarter happens. And we can talk about the fourth quarter. We'll get into the dramatic finish, the OG heroics, Fox's just bonehead plays over the course of the game. Wembanyama, who had a rough, who had a bad horrible second half, going 3 for 14, ended up overall going 9 for 25. But this game was lost by the Spurs in the third quarter. Third quarter, um, the Spurs took 5 straight 3-point shots and missed all of them at a stretch in the third quarter. They were 2 for 12 from three in the third quarter. They scored 14 points in the third quarter. Castle picks up his fourth foul, right? Picks up, well, that didn't happen in the fourth quarter, happened in the fourth quarter, but um, the third quarter, the game started getting away from the Spurs, and a couple things happened. One, they continued to jack up 3-point shots. They were not going to the paint. They, second half, they shoot 8 for 39 from the field, 21%. Um, and they just fell in love with the 3-point shot. Like they just like they it was weird to watch. That lead went, by the time the third quarter ends, that lead is, going to the fourth quarter is 90 to 75. And at that point it was manageable. It was manageable for the Knicks to possibly actually make the Spurs sweat in the fourth quarter. But and more importantly, the most important thing that happened in the third quarter that affected this game was Mitch Johnson's usage of Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama in the third quarter played 11 minutes. He takes Wembanyama out with about 5:33 left in the third quarter. He took him out. It was a 19-point lead. You pull him back in after the Knicks had cut the lead to like 16 or 17. He plays the rest of the third quarter, and the Knicks actually the Spurs actually lost points off the lead. So it was no benefit to playing Wembanyama 11 minutes in the third quarter. You would have been better off. Let's say you only had like a 10-point lead going to the fourth quarter, right? You've been better off. I'd rather have a lesser lead and have a fresher Victor Wembanyama because in the fourth quarter, Wembanyama was awful, taking bad shots. He missed 2 critical free throws. Even defensively, as a primary defender, the Knicks shot 50% against him. So his defensive presence wasn't even the same over the course of this game. And the Spurs, the Knicks kept chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. Now, the Knicks made some threes in the second half. Knicks shot, and they end up closing. They basically, when you look at the final stats, basically closed the 3-point gap. Um, basically even. The Knicks 15 to 32 from the 3-point line from three. Spurs was 17 of 43. The Spurs again in the first half outscored the Knicks from the 3-point line, like 45, I believe 45 to 15. And when you get into the fourth quarter, and once this thing got under 10, it was it basically was a wrap. Like when it got under 10 and you got to 7 and 5, you knew where this thing was headed. The Spurs have been an awful clutch time team in the postseason this year. They're shooting like 3% in clutch time. Their record in clutch time is like 3-7 in the postseason. Um, so that I mean, a close games. We know these close games are going to favor the New York Knicks. Again, San Antonio is a streaky 3-point shooting team. They are not a great knockdown 3-point shooting team. When they get hot, they look like one of the greatest teams of all time. We've seen them in the these playoffs have these cold stretches where they can't throw it can't throw it into the ocean, and will still keep taking them for whatever reason. And their offense is way more is more diverse than that. They have guys that can get to the paint. Harper Castle. Those guys can get to the paint. Victor at times certainly has the ability to get into the paint. Fourth quarter, Wembanyama, because of how he was misused in the third quarter with the minutes, Wembanyama ended up playing 44 minutes. Think about that. Wembanyama plays 44 minutes in a game at one point where the Spurs were up 29 points. And by the way, the Spurs had a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter. There was a time, so they Mitch Johnson could have bought some minutes for Wembanyama to rest in the fourth quarter. There was zero excuse for Victor Wembanyama to play 44 minutes in a game where you're up 29 points. That made no excuse whatsoever. And again, he had nothing in the second half. He had nothing in the fourth quarter. He was exhausted. And remember, they played on Monday, so we were on the every other day schedule. The last in games 3 and 4. Well, so dealing with the Nick perspective, from the Nick perspective first, I'll get back to the Spurs. This is what the Knicks have done in the last two postseasons. Let's get to the end of the game. Let's get to the fourth quarter and the end of the game. Knicks take the lead. You have a situation, Mike Brown, you're getting nothing out of. You have a situation where the Knicks were getting nothing. Towns, who ended up having Towns was like, I think, plus 17 in this game. I believe his plus minus number was plus 17 in this game. I'll look it up now. But Towns was basically uneven in this game with the foul trouble, kind of threw him off. Uh, Towns was still plus 17 in this game and still had 13 points and 10 rebounds. And still, when the ball touched his hands in the fourth quarter, good things happened. He had made a big 3-point shot in the fourth quarter that easily could have been a 4-point play over Keldon Johnson. Probably should have been a foul and one as well. They got nothing out of Bridges, and they were getting basically nothing from the bench outside of Jose Alvarado, who played a big part in this comeback as Mike Brown had him on the floor to take some of the dribbling, ball handling responsibilities away from Jalen Brunson, and that paid dividends as Brunson was fresh down the stretch. In the fourth quarter, Brunson played by far, to me, his best game of the series. 36 points on 12 of 25 from the field. Made some big time shots. Got to the line 11 times. Was a plus 11 in this game. But man, the hero of this game, if you're the New York Knicks, the guy who was the best player on the floor in this game was OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby in this game, 33 points, 7 and 9 from three, 33 points on 15 shots, and had huge. Now he obviously gets the dramatic game-winning tip, um, but also had a great block on De'Aaron Fox. We'll get back to him on a play where the Spurs are up by one. Ball gets knocked out to the backcourt. Fox chases the ball down, and I don't know, for whatever reason, chooses to try to lay it up, and Novi blocks it from behind, and the Knicks get the ball back. And the Knicks, and Kenny Smith made this great point. The Knicks ended this game the way the Spurs should have ended game two. Spurs waited too long in game two to get off the last shot. They end up getting off one shot, and that was the game. The Wembanyama shot, jump shot, miss, and now they lead themselves no time for offensive rebound. The Knicks get the ball back with about 5.7 seconds left. They get it into Brunson. Brunson takes about a 28 to 30 footer over Wembanyama. It draws Wembanyama out. It leaves them enough time for an offensive rebound, or at worst, if the Spurs rebound, they could foul and then force the Spurs to make some free throws and hopefully get a have a shot at a miracle shot at the end. But whatever the case was, the point was to get the ball up on the rim, a shot quick enough so you can have a chance at an offensive rebound. Brunson did a masterful job at getting the shot up, almost hits the front of the rim, hits the front of the hits the back of the rim, caroms over a perfect bounce off the rim in order, and OG and Nobi has a free run as you had basically the Spurs guards were basically in La La Land and didn't put a body on him. He has a free run and gets a tip, a controlled tip, and that was the ball game. And that was the final score of the game. Spurs got a decent look at the end at the with the last shot. I Towns tipped that pass, the inbounds pass. Towns tips the inbounds pass. Castle ends up with the ball, but was not able to get off a clean shot, and that was the ball game. And again, the Knicks. A this win has kind of been like this type of win has kind of been like 5 years in the making since Jalen Brunson got to the Knicks. This was like a culture win for the Knicks. In the last two postseasons, the Knicks have come back from 20 points down 5 times. They did it 3 times last year. Did it 3 times last year in the postseason, and have done it twice this year. Of course, that game one against the Atlanta Hawks where they were down 22 in the fourth quarter. The Knicks keep playing. They are again they are excellent 3 point. They have been a great 3 point shooting team in the postseason. Came into the finals like red hot, shooting like 40% from the three. They had cooled off the last couple games, especially the first half of this game. They couldn't throw it in the ocean in the first half of this game, but we know they're certainly capable of getting hot. And they made some timely 3 point, had some timely 3 point shooting, and just basically walked the Spurs down, and walked the Spurs down. And you have a situation where they just keep playing. The Knicks just keep playing. I listen. Teams down by 29, 20 in the fourth quarter. Again, there was nothing that came out of that first half that said that the Knicks could possibly pull this off. I mean, the Spurs are playing as well as a team could possibly play in the finals. They were playing near perfect basketball. I think um, what happened was you get you get a string of bad shots in the NBA, bad shots in the NBA playoffs, especially at this level at the finals, are kind of like turnovers. And again, the Spurs took 5 consecutive 3 point shots. Maybe one of them was a decent shot, but there was no reason for them to take 5 straight 3 point shots. During Barkley said it was 8 straight. It was 5 straight. There was no reason for them not to be use dribble penetration to not for their guards to touch the paint. Um, we know that they are able to get they're capable. They have guys that can draw fouls. So they have that going for them. They are this listen. They are not a live and die 3 point shooting team. Like they can make threes, but that is not their game to a point to where they're not like the 18 Houston Rockets here. And again, Mitch Johnson, showing, he's only 39 years old, first time in the finals, uh, like never calls timeouts to calm his team down. Didn't call a timeout to calm the waters as the Knicks are making that run, even until late in the fourth quarter, when the horses were already out of the barns and the Knicks were like well on their way. This will go down as one of the obviously, you start thinking about one of the great comebacks in the history of postseason sports. This is right there. This is one of the great. This is one of the great moments in the history of New York sports. To be perfectly honest with you, the Knicks, and again, the Knicks are a perfect team to take advantage of a collapse. They're a perfect team for that. They stay poised. They have guys that are not afraid of the moment. They have a veteran coach who's coached in the NBA Finals before, been an assistant coach in a couple other places, been an assistant coach with Golden State and won a couple of championships. And Mike Brown. Get into the Spurs aspect of this. Um, De'Aaron Fox. A couple things. Number one, uh, Dylan Harper has clearly been the Spurs' second best player in this series. I know Castle has had some moments, but from start to finish, from game one up until this point, Dylan Harper has been, this, to me, the Spurs' most reliable player and definitely their second most reliable offensive weapon. 32 minutes is not enough for Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper should be at 38 to 40 minutes, period, point blank. Take some of those Keldon Johnson minutes and give him to Dylan Harper. Keldon Johnson has done nothing in this series. He's averaging like 3 points a game, shooting like 20% from three, 30, I think he's like 38%, 33%, 33% overall, 20% from 3 point shots. He's not a great defender to begin with. Like, Keldon Johnson's giving you nothing. Give some of those minutes to Dylan Harper. Like, he's not a rookie. At this point, he's not a rookie anymore. He's not. This guy is fearless. We've seen this guy physically move OG Anunoby in the paint. We've seen that. And he was really the only Spur in the second half that was getting quality shots. Spurs lost this game based off just horrible shot selection in the second half. I saw one of these nerdy analytic stats that the Spurs shot quality in the second half went down to like 44%. The Spurs, again, 8 for 39 in the second half. They made 8 shots in the second half. They hit 14 threes in the first half. They made more 3 point shots in the first half than they did total field goals in the second half. And the pattern of the Spurs, even going back to the OKC series, has been this. They get out to excellent starts. 8 of their last 9 playoff games, they have had a double-digit lead in the first quarter. This entire series, from in the first quarter, the Spurs have had a double-digit lead. That's the first time in the history of the finals that a team has done that. But you cannot finish. You get the Spurs in a clutch situation within 5 points with less than 5 minutes to go. They're in trouble. Because to me what happened was they didn't generate any other offense outside of their 3 point shooting. And once the 3 point shooting came and went, their offense just completely they had no offense outside of 3 point shooting. Like, they had nothing that was reliable that they were going to rely that was reliable in the second half of that game once they stopped making shots. And I think that's going to be part of the evolution of this team, regardless of what happens in the rest of this series. Presumably, I don't think the Spurs can win 3 straight games, but even big picture, like, they're kind of reflective of Wembanyama. They compete like hell. They're enormously talented, but they really have no offensive identity. They really have no offensive identity. When that 3 point shot goes, it's like, ooh, what do we do in the half court to generate quality shots? Wembanyama in this game uh, had a great, had an excellent first half, as most of the Spurs did. Second half, again, exhausted going to the fourth quarter. He started settling for threes once again. 9 of 25 from the field. He goes 9 of 25 from the field. Um, 2 for 8 from the 3 point line, and a good gauge to get a good when you can look at the box score tell how active he's been. Um, 8 3-point shots, 7 free throws. So when his threes outnumber his free throws, it's not good. Um, It's not, that's not good. That's that spells bad news for San Antonio. So I think move obviously the Knicks in the situation. Um, and listen, it would be great to close this out at home in Game 6. But to me, if I'm the Knicks, I'm trying to wrap this up in Game 5. I don't want to mess. I don't want to give the Spurs any confidence. Number one, I want to see if the Spurs have recovered from this. Um, I want to see if the Spurs have recovered from this. If I can hit them early in Game 5, maybe I can knock them out and completely uh, beat them. But I'm not conceding a Game 5 just to go back to New York at a Game 6. Like if you're the Knicks, you go out there and you try to take care of business in a Game 5. If you lose a close game, that's one thing. But if you go out there and get your asses handed to you, um, that would tell me that they didn't have the proper mindset going into that Game 5 to wrap it up. Listen, this series is even though I picked the Knicks in 6, I think Spurs do win Game 5, and I think the Knicks will finish this off in 6 games. But if you're the Spurs, you can't think that this series is over. From the standpoint of you could have easily won any one of these 4 games. Lost now 2 1-point games, two, and now in games 2 and 4. So this has been a really closely contested series. Even I know game 1 was decided by 10 points, but that game was that was anybody's game within the last 2 minutes, and the Knicks made a late run to make it to stretch the score out and make it look worse than the score looked worse than it actually was. But it's much easier to come back from a 3-1 deficit with home court advantage. And the Spurs don't have home court advantage, but Spurs have home court advantage. Will have if they can stretch the series out, would have 2 of the next 3 games at home. So I don't think this. I think the series is too close. It's been too closely contested to say that it's over. But I don't see the Spurs winning straight games, especially considering how bad these games are going to be close. These games are going to be close. Spurs right now don't have the level of poise and execution to win these clutch games. They're just not good in these clutch games. So in the postseason they have been horrible during in clutch time. So I expect the Knicks to wrap this up in 6 games. This will be a learning experience for the Spurs. If you're the Spurs, all these teams have to go through it. All these young teams. Again, this is was the second youngest team in the history of the NBA to get to the NBA Finals. Um, I don't think see the Spurs rolling over. I don't see a situation where the Knicks cough up 3 straight games. And to be honest with you, the Knicks have not played to finish. So the Knicks again. Knicks, their best player in the series has been OG Anunoby. If I had a vote, which I don't, of course, for Finals MVP, I think OG Anunoby should be the Finals MVP. Two-way stuff that he's been doing, the shot making, the efficiency. OG Anunoby in the series is averaging about 24 points on 55, 58, 55, 90. Look at the splits real quick. 23 points on 58, 55, 91 splits. Again, his defense, he's come up with just some big time, great blocks. We've seen him block Dylan Harper a couple times, backpedaling. He gets the big block against De'Aaron Fox. And then even in last game, he almost he made San Antonio sweat with some of his shot making. in the fourth quarter of that game. He has been phenomenal in this series. And like I said, I understand Brunson. There's going to be some push for Brunson to win MVP because he's been their best player, their franchise player. But the Knicks have been at their best when Muji and Carl Anthony Towns are kind of running things offensively. That's just a cold fact. So we'll see what happens in game five. Spurs will have an extra day to kind of recuperate mentally and physically from this next because game five is not until Saturday night back in San Antonio. So we'll see what happens with that. I will talk to you next week. That'd be great. See your evening. Miss your afternoon. So long.